So to make a start, I work in our energy policy team at the Greater London Authority. Um, who are we? I'm guessing some people here will be familiar with who the GLA is, some sort of less so. So as a quick introduction, the GLA is the Greater London Authority. We're headed up by the Mayor of London, Sadiq Khan, who came into power in May 2016. And the GLA is responsible for essentially the strategic overview of London. And we set the budget for some of the functional bodies who you're probably more familiar with on a day-to-day basis, like Transport for London, the Metropolitan Police, the London Fire Brigade, and also mayoral development corporations. We cover a huge area as a regional authority. All of the 33 local authorities, so the London boroughs and the City of London, pretty much the whole area within the M25. And the mayor provides a kind of strategic overview, and then the boroughs, the local authorities, often the more local scale delivery of kind of services. So I'm in the environment team at the GLA, and we recently published a new draft environment strategy, which was actually in August last year. It went through a few months of public consultation, and now we're taking that feedback from the consultation and updating the strategy for a final publication. This is basically the culmination of looking at 8 existing strategies and updating them and putting them all into one document. And a key area within that is the mayor's commitments around energy and climate change mitigation in particular. So I'm not expecting you to read all of these. It's going to a bit of detail, just pulling out some of the key commitments and objectives that the mayor has around energy and climate change mitigation. So when he came into power, the mayor had quite a few manifesto commitments around things like renewable energy, around solar, and around energy supply within London. So the one which is the most relevant to this discussion here, this seminar, is the focus on solar, and a particular focus on sort of community groups, community energy groups, what the GLA can do to lead by example when it comes to solar and other renewables, and then what is within the mayor's powers to then help encourage installation of solar elsewhere. And we're going to talk a bit more about the domestic in a bit more detail. So this is part of the mayor has this package of work called Energy for Londoners, and the solar and sort of generation side of things comes under this second objective, which is about clean and smart integrated energy systems using local and renewable energy resources. So why are we interested in solar? Mainly because London is lagging behind other regions, and certainly has been. That's definitely been the story. We can see on the right here, London is pretty much near the bottom end of the scale when it comes to looking at the different regions and total amount of domestic solar installed. This is all data from the Ofgem's feed-in tariff. But then when it comes to community installations, which includes both kind of community groups, but also communally used buildings, London's doing a little bit better. So it ends up being sort of a third or fourth there in the rankings. And there's lots of reasons for why London's not doing as well as other regions, partly due to sort of the complexity of the building stock, height, overshadowing, that sort of thing. But still, it should be doing better. And the mayor basically wants to turn London from being sort of a solar laggard into being a solar leader. So this then led to the Solar Action Plan, Draft Solar Action Plan, which is part of the mayor's environment strategy. It was released at the same time. And what this looks to do, it looks to go into more detail than the strategy, looking at very specific actions that the mayor has more control over, more ability to directly influence to help increase the rate of solar installation in London. So the mayor's set this ambition for London to have 1 gigawatt of solar by 2030. We're currently on about 100 megawatts, so tenfold increase, and rising to 2 gigawatts by 2050. Why? Well, it's an important contribution to the Mayor's overarching zero carbon London by 2050 target in terms of the clean energy, renewable energy generation offered by solar, but also has some more specific local benefits. So what are we doing in this plan? You can have a look yourself. The links here. The consultation period is closed, but we're looking to publish the final version in the summer. And I've just pulled out there 5 kind of key elements to it. So the first one's really about mapping and communicating the potential to kind of raise awareness, to help reduce some of the perceptions that solar is no longer viable. And of course it is, and there's lots of opportunities where it makes sense to do it. There's leading by example in terms of maximizing solar on the GLA buildings and estates, encouraging renewables such as solar through the planning system. That's where the Mayor probably has his most direct power in terms of reviewing the large planning applications that come into London. Piloting a collective purchasing scheme to reduce costs for domestic customers, and Jamie will talk about that in a bit more detail. And then looking at what the Mayor can do around sort of community energy in particular to support that. So the London Community Energy Fund was launched when the Solar Action Plan was out late last year. And this offers basically grants to get community energy scale projects in London off the ground. So rather than providing funding for capital works, it looks at funding essentially like the feasibility assessments and the work that's required to demonstrate there's a business case to then enable funding and then to actually deliver themselves. So it's more about that enabling role rather than sort of direct capital support. So phase 1 recently kicked off. We had all our grants were announced actually earlier this week. Hopefully you all read about it. There's a nice little article there, Solar Power Portal. They basically had 13 projects which we're supporting through mayoral funding, a total of around £150,000 across 8 London boroughs. And this ranges from kind of feasibility studies to community engagement exercises for solar PV, but also looking at other more innovative ways to encourage and incorporate solar. So also think about battery storage and look at a range of different building types, so housing, schools, community buildings, and a few other kind of interesting areas as well. So like I said, this went live late last year, and we're looking to then sort of develop a second phase from this summer onwards. So that's one of the programs that's already underway from the Mayor's Solar Action Plan, looking to support eventually the delivery of solar.